There are 13 foods sitting in a basement right now that most preppers have never discussed, never posted about online, and actively avoided mentioning in local preparedness groups. And there is a very good reason for that. These are not the typical survival foods flooding every blog and video recommendation. During the last several major supply chain disruptions, while everyone else scrambled for the same depleted products, these 13 items sat fully stocked on shelves with zero competition. One of them has been available at an ordinary grocery store for 2 consecutive years without a single person grabbing it, and it contains more protein per dollar than anything the preparedness community typically recommends. Another has sustained sailors and soldiers for 4 centuries, costs almost nothing, and has a shelf life so long that scientists cannot reliably measure when it expires. The problem with modern preparedness culture is that it functions as an echo chamber. Everyone watches the same content, reads the same blogs, and ends up purchasing identical supplies. So when a real crisis strikes, the first things to vanish are exactly the products everyone recommends. In March 2020, rice disappeared from store shelves within 2 hours. Pasta was gone by noon. Canned soup lasted less than a day. But every single food on this list remained fully stocked 3 days later. That is not a coincidence. That is the advantage of thinking differently. The first food is shelf-stable lard. Not the refrigerated kind, the rendered, hydrogenated lard that comes in boxes on grocery shelves. Before dismissing it on health grounds, consider this. In a survival situation, the primary enemy is not cholesterol, it is calorie deficiency. Lard provides more calories per ounce than almost any other storable food. 1 tablespoon contains 115 calories of pure energy. Pioneers crossing the American frontier relied on lard more than almost anything else. It kept them alive through winter, provided the fat their bodies desperately needed, and lasted entire journeys without refrigeration. A 3-pound box costs around $4.50 and delivers over 5,000 calories. That is unbeatable value. Beyond cooking, lard can be used to make soap, serve as a base for medicinal salves, and even function as emergency lamp fuel. When cooking oil shelves were completely bare during recent shortages, lard sat untouched. It is invisible to most shoppers, which makes it invaluable to those who know better. The second food is canned fish roe, fish eggs. This sounds unconventional, but the nutritional profile is extraordinary. Fish roe contains omega-3 fatty acids at exceptional concentrations, along with vitamin B12, vitamin D, selenium, and significant protein. The cans are small, making storage straightforward, and they remain shelf-stable for years. During extended emergencies, most improvised diets become dangerously deficient in healthy fats. Rice has essentially none. Beans have almost none. When the brain is deprived of adequate fat, mood crashes, decision-making suffers, and exhaustion sets in. Fish roe is concentrated brain fuel. Most Americans have never eaten it, which means during shortages, it sits completely ignored. 50 small cans cost roughly $60, 50 doses of premium nutrition that will last for years while others fight over the same tired staples. The third food is dried whole corn kernels. Not popcorn, not cornmeal, but whole dried field corn. This is still sold at feed stores and in bulk sections of some grocery stores for almost nothing. Stored properly, it lasts 10 years or more. It can be ground into cornmeal for cornbread, soaked in lime water to make hominy through a process called nixtamalization, or sprouted for fresh food during winter months. Families during the Dust Bowl survived for months on little else, buying 50-pound sacks for nearly nothing and stretching them as far as possible. 50 pounds of dried corn costs around $18. During the last shortage, when rice and beans were stripped from shelves, dried corn sat completely untouched at local feed stores. This is generational knowledge that somehow got lost, and recovering it is a genuine advantage. The fourth food is black garlic. This is regular garlic aged through a controlled fermentation process that turns it black, makes it taste sweet and complex and almost like balsamic vinegar, and crucially, renders it shelf-stable without refrigeration for up to a year. Black garlic contains double the antioxidants of regular garlic and supports immune function meaningfully. During extended emergencies, the immune system takes a beating from stress, poor sleep, and limited dietary variety. Black garlic functions as a nutritional insurance policy. It is available in bulk online for roughly $40 per pound, which is a higher upfront cost, but the shelf life and health benefits make it worth the investment. Because most people have never heard of it, it is consistently available even when other pantry staples have vanished. The fifth food is hardtack. This dense, hard cracker has sustained soldiers and sailors for 400 years and is nearly impossible to overstate in terms of shelf life. Archaeologists have found Civil War-era hardtack over 150 years old that was still technically edible. Made from just flour, water, and salt baked until completely solid, it provides maximum calories for minimum weight and space, exactly what matters in a bug-out scenario. Making it at home costs almost nothing. 20 pounds of hardtack can be produced for around $12 in ingredients. Soaked briefly in coffee, broth, or water, it becomes genuinely palatable. It sounds primitive, but primitive has survived centuries for a reason. The sixth food is canned butter, not freeze-dried powder, but actual real butter sealed in cans, primarily produced in New Zealand and parts of Europe. Unopened, it lasts 3 to 5 years at room temperature. Butter is pure fat, which means pure energy, and most preparedness stockpiles are dangerously low in fat content. That deficiency manifests quickly. Unexplained weight loss, persistent cold, difficulty concentrating, low energy. Fat is not optional nutrition, it is essential. A 12-ounce can run between $12 and $15, which feels expensive until the moment it becomes irreplaceable. Arctic explorers have relied on canned butter precisely because it survives extreme conditions and provides the dense caloric energy that extreme situations demand. The seventh food is canned cheese, not cheese sauce, not processed spread, but real aged cheese sealed in cans by European producers. It keeps 2 to 3 years at room temperature and opens to firm, flavorful cheese that is calorie-dense, high in protein and fat, and packed with calcium. Beyond nutrition, cheese is a morale item. After days of bland, repetitive food, a small piece of real aged cheese changes the psychological atmosphere of a meal entirely. That shift in morale is not trivial during a genuine crisis. It is what keeps people functional, cooperative, and mentally stable. Most of the preparedness world has never heard of canned cheese, which is precisely why it belongs in a serious stockpile. The eighth food is malted milk powder. This was originally invented in the late 1800s as survival nutrition for infants and explorers. The formula was designed to be shelf-stable, nutrient-dense, and easy to digest, and it still is. Stored in airtight containers, it lasts 3 to 5 years. During World War II, soldiers carried malted milk tablets specifically because they provided concentrated nutrition in minimal space. Children will drink malted milk willingly, which matters in a prolonged emergency when getting adequate nutrition into younger family members becomes difficult. 10 pounds bought in bulk online costs around $60 and yields over 100 servings. During shortages, it sits completely ignored by the general public. The ninth food is canned pork, not processed meat products, but actual chunks of pork shoulder or loin sealed in their own juices, fully cooked and ready to eat. These are found primarily in Eastern European and Asian markets, with reliable brands coming from Poland, Hungary, and elsewhere. One can provide 30 to 40 grams of complete protein. Most improvised protein sources require planning and pairing to achieve complete amino acid profiles. Canned pork eliminates that complexity entirely. Cans cost around $4 each, compared to $12 to $15 for freeze-dried meal alternatives. During shortages, the international food aisle remains fully stocked, while the mainstream American section is picked clean. That pattern has repeated consistently. The 10th food is canned brown bread, a traditional New England product that most of the country has never encountered. It is a dense, dark bread made from whole wheat, rye, cornmeal, and molasses, completely shelf-stable and ready to eat directly from the can. The shelf life is typically 2 years, though reports of 5-year-old cans being opened successfully are not uncommon. Bread is comfort food. It is psychologically important in ways that rice and beans simply are not, and most stockpiles have no ready-to-eat bread option at all. A can costs around $3. Look for the B&M brand at stores carrying New England food products or order online. The 11th food is fermented black beans. These are soybeans fermented and salted, sold in jars or packages at Asian grocery stores, and they are extraordinarily concentrated flavor. A single tablespoon can transform an entire pot of plain rice into something that tastes complex, savory, and satisfying. A jar that costs $3 can season dozens of meals. The fermentation process also creates probiotics that support gut health, which matters significantly during periods of stress and dietary restriction. A jar stored in the pantry remains perfectly good for years. 10 jars cost about $30 and represent exponential value when the alternative is enduring week after week of flavorless food. The 12th food is suet, the hard fat found around beef kidneys, available at butcher shops for almost nothing, because most people no longer know what to do with it. 1 ounce provides around 240 calories. British sailors relied on suet pudding. Arctic explorers packed it because it does not freeze solid even in sub-zero temperatures. 2 pounds typically costs around $3. Suet can be rendered into tallow, which is shelf-stable for years, and used as the base for pemmican, historically considered the ultimate long-term survival food. Ask any butcher who processes beef whether they sell suet. Most will practically give it away. It is old-fashioned knowledge that survived because it works. The 13th food is pure MSG, monosodium glutamate. This is controversial only because of myths from the 1960s that have been thoroughly debunked. The FDA classifies MSG as generally recognized as safe, and decades of research support that conclusion. What MSG does in a survival context is critically important. A tiny pinch makes food taste dramatically better by triggering umami receptors, which signals satiety. When food tastes good, people eat less because satisfaction arrives sooner, which means stockpiles last longer. When food tastes like punishment, morale collapses, and that is genuinely dangerous in a long-term crisis. A 1-pound bag costs around $5 and will season thousands of meals. During every documented shortage, MSG sits fully stocked on shelves because people are afraid of something that poses no real risk. That fear is their problem and a stockpile advantage for those paying attention. Storage is where most people undermine everything else. The ideal location is cool, dark, and dry, a basement corner away from any water source, maintaining temperatures between 50 and 70 degrees year-round. Sunlight destroys nutrients, accelerates rancidity in fats, and degrades vitamins. Humidity causes mold in dried goods. For bulk staples like rice, beans, and dried corn, food-grade 5-gallon buckets with Gamma Seal lids are the practical standard. Inside each bucket, a mylar bag with oxygen absorbers creates a barrier against light, moisture, and oxidation and eliminates any insect eggs present in the food. Sealed properly, rice and beans stored this way remain viable for 20 to 30 years. For canned goods, simple shelving organized by category and rotated on a first in, first out basis ensures nothing expires before it gets used. The single most important thing is to start now rather than waiting for the perfect moment or a complete setup. One bucket of properly sealed rice in a closet is more preparedness than most households have. One can of canned butter, one jar of fermented black beans, one box of shelf-stable lard. These are small, inexpensive decisions that compound into genuine resilience over time. Build the stockpile one item at a time, prioritize what others overlook, and store it correctly. When the next shortage arrives, and it will, the shelves that matter will already be full.